I was invited to Chicago for a screening of Suicide Squad, and this movie is a sequel rebranding of the first film. And during my drive up there, I was a little bit on the fence for this movie right here, because there are some things in the background that I happen to know that most casual fans have any idea of. But David Ayers, the director of the first movie, came out and said that the Suicide Squad is not his movie. All leading up to some of the characters' decisions and up to the villain Shakira, all those were Warner Bros. Decisions. David Ayers had a different cut, a different version of the movie where Steppenwolf made an appearance. Obviously, Warner Bros. Made some decisions, cut the movie, and then they put their own scenes in the movie, and then they released it into theaters, and then the backlash came right back at David Ayers. David Ayers came out with a statement explaining his thoughts on the Suicide Squad movie. And I felt like that some fans who went into the first Suicide Squad who were disappointed might watch this Suicide Squad to throw shots at David Ayers, and I just feel like, no, David Ayers didn't direct that movie. Yeah, he directed the movie, but he wasn't there in the editing room. Going into this movie, throwing shots at David Ayers because you're disappointed with the first movie, I feel like it's not fair. For James Gunn, this is a conflicting message to me, because James Gunn, he came from Disney, and he was fired for Disney for his recent tweets about when he was joking about raping little boys, raping little girls, and, you know, those tweets were jokes, but, you know, he deleted those tweets, but the tweets resurfaced, and Disney found out, and they fired him. But then DC hired him right off the back, and they gave him complete full control of his own movie. I'm talking about, they offer him a Green Lantern movie, they even offer him a Superman movie, but he decided to do Suicide Squad with full control. Even with all this knowledge, I still would judge this movie based off its merits. Suicide Squad follows our supervillains Bloodsport, PeaceMaker, King Shark, and Harley Quinn as they settle their differences to face a threat against the human race. It has a plethora of cast, but I'm talking about some plethora of characters, leading on to Ratcatcher, Polka Dot Man, Bloodsport, PeaceMaker, Harley Quinn, King Shark, you name it! And Amanda Waller being played by Viola Davis. Where do I begin with this movie? I had to go with the pros, man. And just by watching this movie, I could see that, yes, James Gunn directed this movie, and I wasn't going in hating it. I was going in with an open mind, but watching this movie, I can literally see the passion. He took extreme care with these characters. I was extremely baffled at how good these characters were. I'm talking about from Bloodsport, from Ratcatcher, from Polka Dot Man. Each character had their moment to shine. Also, there was a little bit of development for each character during the story that gave depth to the story, and also gave the audience an understanding of what led these characters to be part of the team. Not only were there some good character moments, there were some good character emotional moments between our characters that I wasn't expecting from James Gunn, because, you know, James Gunn, he has a certain formula revolving around his humor, because there is some humor where he might have like a certain emotional part, like there'll be a part where there's building up emotional tension, but then he just turns around with a joke, and then they play along with that joke, and it comes vulgar and over the top. Basically removes all the tension from that emotional scene. When the emotional buildup was happening, I thought to myself, okay, is James Gunn going to give out a good joke to take away from the tension? But actually, there were some good emotional moments that the tension did rise up, and there was an emotional moment, like good character moment between Ratcatcher and Bloodsport. I'm not going to really go much into it, but there is a good development there. No way I would think I will find myself gravitating to certain characters and actually liking a few characters, almost loving a few characters. Now, Margot Robbie was Margot Robbie in this movie. Yes, Harley Quinn was great, but I'll get to her in a second. But one of my surprisers of this whole entire movie, because, you know, I did a segment where I was kind of upset that they picked these characters, Ratcatcher, Polka Dot Man, and I was upset at first. But actually, my favorite character in this whole entire movie was Bloodsport and Ratcatcher. Those two characters hit me the most. Ratcatcher hit me on an emotional level, while Bloodsport hit me more on more of an entertainment level. He doesn't feel like a Deadshot 2.0, and that's that there is a story revolving around him and his daughter that differentiates itself from that first movie. So there is a bigger difference. He wore his helmet for most of the movie. Yeah, Idris Elba is a big actor, A-list actor, so you thinking to yourself, you're going to see his face for most of the movie. But no, he wore his mask, basically embodying the character of Bloodsport. While in the first movie, Will Smith, yeah, you know he's Deadshot, but he hardly wears his mask in the movie. He's like probably wears like his mask for like one scene and he takes it off. From the little things leading on to these characters that I actually like that James Gunn paid attention to. King Shark had a moment to shine. Yes, even though I have some things I didn't really like with King Shark, but King Shark is different from your comic books. King Shark is more of a, you know, Patrick Star, dumb fun, but actually it works for the humor in this movie. And I didn't really find it a difficulty of not liking the character. I actually enjoyed King Shark, so having him different from the comic books, it actually worked through the confines of the story. And the thing about this story, that the story starts off on the mission. There isn't no build up to anything bigger. You can actually feel the passion and care that James Gunn is putting into this movie that I didn't really feel in the first movie. Basically, going back to the reason why it's best to have directors to complete their full vision. I didn't going in thinking these characters are going to be developed. I wasn't going in this movie is going to be like a Guardians of the Galaxy 2.0. It was its own thing. I knew it was going to be its own thing, especially when it comes to this blood and gore. And when it comes to the blood and gore, it is just fascinating and just fun watching the blood and gore. And characters die all over the place. I'm talking about like, don't get close to a character. I didn't get close to any characters, but I wasn't expecting characters to die in a horrific fashion, and it was enjoyable. He did a good job of blending in the horror gore elements along with the humor. Did a really good job. I have to give good praise when I see it. This film does seem like it's silly, but James Gunn still is able to keep the seriousness on moments when the characters need to be serious. Another character I want to point out was PeaceMaker, John Cena. But I felt like this was one of the best performances of John Cena. I don't know how James Gunn is able to pull it off, but James Gunn's able to make me understand this character based off his performance. And also, I couldn't really see him. Harley Quinn had her badass moments, and Harley Quinn was just badass. That's all I gotta say. Harley Quinn was just badass. It's just a formality at this point. Another surprising factor in the movie that I didn't see coming, that Rick Flag actually felt like a character. Like, James Gunn basically brought out the humanity side to each character. And you actually understand their motivations, you understand their convictions. Well, for the most part, you don't really understand most of King Shark because he's mostly dumb. But I actually enjoyed this movie for what it is. And I did like the stylistic choices. I did like the direction style that James Gunn did. And I felt like some of the wide shot with the white background, some of those scenes were ripped from the pages of the Suicide Squad comic. I'm like, James Gunn,
you're doing too much, man.
And it doesn't feel like a rehash from your everyday superhero movie. It felt different, that it stands on its own. And that was a good factor. And as for the few nitpicks with this movie, there's some things and jokes that kind of took me out of certain moments that I just wish that he didn't have in there. Like, there is a scene where they basically make fun of PeaceMaker's genitalia, and it was a scene that kind of extended for like over 2 minutes, and I'm just like, why? One small nitpick has to deal with Amanda Waller's character. Now, I felt like some of the humor revolved around her character didn't really work for her character. Like, if you read her character from the comics, if you've seen her character like in the TV shows, and if you have seen her character from the last movie, it just doesn't work. It just feels awkward, and it doesn't really make sense. You look back from her character arc from the comics and the show and the movie, the real Amanda Waller would not allow such a thing to happen. So, yeah, I just would say that Amanda Waller was sort of reduced for comedic purposes, but she was still effective. But other than that, this movie was surprisingly good. I enjoyed it, so I don't really have much particular flaws. So I'm going to have to say that Suicide Squad is one of the best DCEU films and one of the better DC films and one of my favorite DC films that I had to give the Suicide Squad a Batman-tastic. If you like everything you see and you agree, click right here to join me and the Batman family. I'll have more Batman-tastic reviews in the way. You have been warned. Till then,